A warm welcome to the students of BCom first semester for the session on the subject Corporate Structure and Administration. Today the unit which will be covered is Capital of a Company, Unit 2. The topic is on share capital. Dear students, this module will help you to understand the concepts relating to introduction to share capital, meaning of share capital, types of share capital, and also we shall discuss the most important or likely questions in your examination. Let's begin with the introduction aspect of shares. The joint stock company is a big form of business organization. The amount required by the company for its business activities is raised by the issue of shares. Say a company requires capital to run its day-to-day business activities, both in the short term and long term. So one of the source of this capital is through issue of shares. The amount so raised is called share capital or capital of the company. It may be noted that a company limited by shares will have share capital. A company limited by guarantee or an unlimited company may not have any share capital. So dear students, you need to remember share capital can be raised only by those companies that are limited by shares. Whereas company limited by guarantee or unlimited company may not have any share capital. The persons who buys such shares of a company are called shareholders. Let's now understand the meaning of share capital. Share capital is the money of a company raises by issuing a common or preferred stock. Let me repeat. Capital is the sum of money which a company raises through issue of common or preferred stock. So this is the meaning of the term share capital. A corporation's share capital is the portion of a corporation's equity that has been obtained by the issue of shares in the corporation of a shareholder, usually for cash. In the image you can see there are investors, founders, together they raise capital for the company. Let's understand types of share capital. Students, you must be very clear there is a difference. In next session, I'll be discussing types of shares. But here we are going to discuss about types of share capital. Or in the examination, they might ask you, explain the classification or kinds of share capital. You can observe in the chart, there are different types of share capital. Authorized share capital, issued share capital, subscribed share capital, called up capital, and paid up capital. I will explain each type in detail for you all. When you're writing an examination, do remember to draw this chart. So they will allot 2 marks for the chart which you have drawn. So it will help you to fetch good marks in your examination. Let's understand each type of share capital. Pay much attention to grasp the meaning. Authorized or registered or nominal capital. This is the amount of capital with which the company intends to get itself registered. This is the amount of share capital which a company is authorized to issue. Authorized means they are given power to issue. Nominal capital is divided into shares of a fixed amount. It must be set out in the Memorandum of Association. In earlier session, we have discussed about capital clause, if you remember, in Memorandum of Association. Therefore, the details has to be specified in Memorandum of Association. It can be increased or decreased by the following the procedures which has been prescribed according to Companies Act. Let me repeat. Authorized, registered or nominal capital. This is the amount of capital with which the company intends to get itself registered. And it is necessary, this is the amount which has to be specified in the Memorandum of Association. It can be either increased or decreased by following the procedures given in the Schedule of Companies Act 2013. Let's move on to understand the next type, which is issued capital. It is that part of nominal capital which is actually issued by the company for public subscription. A company need not issue the entire authorized capital at once. It goes on raising the capital as and when the need for additional funds is felt. I repeat, the company is authorized to raise certain amount, but it's not necessary they have to raise at one shot. They can issue as and when there is a requirement for funds. Let's understand the difference. The difference between the nominal and issued capital is known as unissued capital. Please students understand, if they ask you a question, what is the meaning of unissued capital, you have to write it as the difference between nominal and issued capital is referred as unissued capital, which can be issued to the public at a later date. Where the whole of authorized capital is offered to the public, the authorized and issued capital will be the same. Issued capital cannot be more than authorized capital. Issued capital includes the shares allotted to public, vendors, and signatories of memorandum of association, and so on. Students, hope you have understood the difference between authorized and issued capital. And I've also specified the difference is known as unissued capital. Let's move on to the next type of capital, which is subscribed capital. Subscribed capital is a part of issued capital which has been accepted by the public. Public is the investors. The said capital is allotted to each subscriber according to the resolution released by company directors. In a situation where the shares allotted by a company are subscribed by the public, the issued capital and subscribed capital will be the same. However, you must remember, or it must be noted, that subscribed capital cannot exceed a company's issued capital. Let me repeat, subscribed capital is a part of issued capital which has been accepted by the public or investors. The next, called up capital. This we shall also understand with an example. Called up capital, it forms a part of subscribed capital, which can be called up or repurchased by the company. Notably, a company does not call the entire value of shares that had been allotted to shareholders. In fact, only a portion of the amount required by the company is raised at different intervals or period of time. Let's take an example. Suppose a company's 20,000 shares, each value of rupees 100 has been subscribed. Now the company calls the shareholders to pay rupees 10 on application, rupees 30 on the first call, and rupees 20 on allotment 1. Subsequently, the called up value whole would amount to rupees 1,20,000. I'm sorry, 12 lakhs. That is 20,000 into 60. 60 is the sum total of application fee plus first call and the allotment. If you sum up, it is 60. And the remaining rupees 8 lakhs, that is 20,000 into 40, would be considered as the company's uncalled capital. Let me repeat, a company's 20,000 shares of rupees 100 each is subscribed to the shareholder in the following manner. That is 10 rupees for application, 30 on the first call, and 20 on allotment 1. So the called up value would be 12 lakhs. That is 20,000 into 60 rupees. How do you arrive at 60 rupees? It is 10 rupees on application, 30 rupees on first call, and 20 on allotment first. So when you total it up, you get 60. And the remaining rupees 8 lakhs would be considered as the company's uncalled capital. Let's move on. What is uncalled capital? This capital makes up the uncalled part of allotted capital. In a simple or general sense, it represents a contingent liability of a company's shareholders on their shares. Let's understand what is paid up capital. It is essentially a part of called up capital. It signifies the amount of money paid by shareholders in response to the call made by a company. Usually, the paid-up capital of a company can be ascertained by subtracting the outstanding calls from called-up capital. Maybe in the next session, I will elaborate this with relevant examples. At this stage, you have to only understand the meaning of paid-up capital. So let's understand these concepts, which will help us to answer the questions in an examination which are related to meaning of share capital, or which is asked in section A for 2 marks, or the next likely question in section B is explain the various types of share capital. As I told you, students, please do remember, when they ask you about types of share capital, draw the chart. So drawing chart alone fetches you 2 marks and remaining for explanation. Hope this session has helped you in understanding various types of share capital. Maybe in the next session, we shall understand them with more relevant example to make your learning in a better way. Thank you, dear students, and let's learn more about shares, features of share in the next session. Thank you all, dear students.